Hallelujah. I'm happy icon. Nice to see you again on part 2. I will tell you the order in part 2. Number 3. Place of rebuilding of the third temple. Number 4. Preparation for rebuilding of the third temple. In this chapter, I'm going to talk about the place where the third temple will be built. This is an aerial view of the old Jerusalem city. There are several places that are currently mentioned as rebuilding sites for the third temple, and I will tell you 3. In other words, Golden Temple, City of David, and next to Golden Temple. The reason why there are several places being claimed to rebuild the third temple is that it must be rebuilt exactly at the site of Mount Moriah where Abraham sacrificed Isaac, and at the first and the second temple. But it has been about 2,000 years after the fall of the second temple, Herod Temple, and there are other buildings built on top of it, and there are some changes in the terrain. Now, let's take a closer look at the opinions of those who claim that the 3 places here are the places of the first and second temples. The first place is a dome of rock. The color of the roof is golden, so it is also called Golden Temple. The area on which this building is erected is called the Temple Mount. In front of it is a silver-roofed Al-Aqsa Mosque. The 2 buildings were built by Islam after the collapse of the Herodite War in AD 70 and are now under the control of Islam. In general, the general public thinks only about the Golden Temple, but the actual Muslims value the Al-Aqsa Mosque here more, and they worship here. There are 3 major holy places of Islam, Mecca, Medina, and here, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Saudi Arabia. It was built at the end of the 8th century, damaged by an earthquake, repaired several times, and the present building was completed in 1066. The Golden Temple was built in 691 after the Islamic occupation of Jerusalem by Omar, a second caliph following Muhammad in 638, and later rebuilt in 1022. Jordan roofed with gold leaf. Although not a mosque, it is the first state-run Muslim building built for public worship. The Jews are known here as the place where Abraham tried to sacrifice Isaac and where the Ark of the Covenant was placed on the Rook altar during Solomon's day. Also, in 1570 Isaac Luria theorized that the Wailing Wall was the only remnant of Herod's temple. Jews have traditionally thought that this was the site of Solomon's temple. By the way, Muslims also regard this place as sacred. According to the Islamic scripture, the Quran says that in 621 Muhammad came here from Mecca with the angel Gabriel to worship Allah, then went up to heaven to meet with prophets like Moses and finally to meet Allah and return to Mecca. And when the day of final judgment comes, they believe that it is the place where Allah will come down with the prophets He has sent so far to proceed with the judgment. Since both Jews and Muslims regard this place as a holy place, it is difficult to give up on one side. However, there is a claim that this is not the site of Herod's temple. The first reason is that Jesus, in Matthew chapter 24 verse 2, said, "I tell you the truth, not one stone here will be left on another, every one will be thrown down." It is claimed that the Wailing Wall of Temple remains and is not correct. And there are several testimonies to support this, among which the Jewish historian Josephus, who lived in the time when the temple was to fall, wrote, "It disappeared completely to the ground, leaving nothing." And Eliezer ben Yair, the commander of the Jews at the time of the fall of Jerusalem, said, "At the time when I saw Jerusalem, it was destroyed to the foundations, and there were only traces of the ruins of the Roman army. And in Jerusalem's occupation, it would have required about 6,000 troops, which would have been very narrow for Fort Antonia, which is about 1.3 hectares. Moreover, no artifacts were found there, probably camping on the Castle Turner." The second reason that this is not a temple site is that in the Old Testament temple, Animals were slaughtered and sacrificed every day, so there should be a large amount of water supply, but the water supply was not stable. To rebuild the third temple here, there would be clashes with the Muslims, and we need to see if the Muslims actually consider it holy. In conclusion, that has been identified as less holy to Muslims. One is, as Muslims pray to Mecca from Temple Mount, their hips are heading for a golden temple. That's ridiculous. On the other hand, Muslims play football or protest on the Temple Mount, and there are signs of stones falling and carpets falling inside the temple. This is a capture of a YouTube video that why Palestinians want this video removed. It's still on YouTube. Then, let's look at whose land is Jerusalem. The Quran never mentions Jerusalem or Palestine. However, the Bible mentions 811 times. In the Quran chapter 5 verse 20, 21, there is a phrase that says, Allah told you to enter the Holy Land. And the Korean version of the Quran adds a comment that interprets the Holy Land as the land of Canaan, Jerusalem. This means that Allah gave Jerusalem to the Jews. The second place I'm going to introduce is the city of David. The city of David was the home of David's royal palace. As you can see in the picture, the city of David is about 250 meters south and slightly lower than Temple Mount, and there is a Gihon spring nearby. The reason for claiming that this is the site of Herod's temple is that 2 Samuel chapter 6 verse 12 contains the Ark of God as the city of David, and 2 Chronicles chapter 3 verse 1, and many other places where Solomon built a temple in the threshing floor of Araunah. In other words, Psalm chapter 9 verse 11 says that God is in Zion, which is to the left of the city of David. Another reason that the city of David is the ruins of its original temple is that priests working in the temple need to wash their bodies and wash away the blood of animals, which requires a lot of water. Indeed, in the 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 63, there were 22,000 cattle and 120,000 sheep offered to God when Solomon performed the temple dedication. It proves that the temple needed a lot of water. Tacitus, a Roman historian, testifies that there was a fountain that never dried in the temple in city of David. However, there is a Gihon spring, which still has considerable water that flows through the Hezekiah tunnel to Siloam. There is another reason for claiming that city of David is a temple site, and in Acts chapter 21 verse 40, Paul goes up from Jerusalem and was caught, and the chieftain stands on the floor and speaks to the crowd as he takes him into the territory. The floor is translated as step in the NIV Bible. At this time, Herod's temple had not yet collapsed. Jewish historian Josephus writes that the temple was located in the corner of two bridges, and Piacenza visited Jerusalem in the 6th century, where the commander, Pilate, was called the Platinum, north of the temple site. This is a picture of Dr. Malton's reconfiguration of the Temple Mount and Herod's temple stationed by the Roman army in 1998, based on several testimonies. Here, the Golden Temple and Al-Aqsa Mosque are located where the Roman army was stationed at the time, and the temple on the left is actually Herod's temple. The third claim to the site of the temple is 100 meters northwest of the Golden Temple. It is claimed that this is the location of the most holy place in Solomon's temple. The party to this claim is Dr. Asher Kaufman, a Hebrew physicist and biblical archaeologist. Many Jewish rabbis also agree with him. In this case, Israel does not have to destroy the Golden Temple. If Israel rebuilds the third temple here, it will be placed alongside the Golden Temple. The Bible supporting this claim is the book of Revelation, chapter 11, and verse 1-2. I was given a reed like a measuring rod and was told, Go and measure the temple of God and the altar, and count the worshippers there. But exclude the outer court, do not measure it, because it has been given to the Gentiles. They will trample on the holy city for 42 months. Here God's temple means the third temple, and the outer courtyard of the temple means the golden temple. In conclusion, there are 3 arguments to date regarding the place where the third temple will be rebuilt. Number 1, Golden Temple. Number 2, the City of David. Number 3, next to the Golden Temple. There may be other claims. So far, however, Golden Temple seem to prevail. The problem is, when Israel rebuild the third temple on the site of a Golden Temple, they have to destroy the current mosque. If so, there can be enormous clashes with Islamic countries. So they are looking forward to the Middle East peace talks led by the United States to solve this problem. The place where the temple will be rebuilt is none of our concern. Eventually, God will choose the right place to proceed. What matters to us is that the third temple will soon be rebuilt. Now, let's take a look at how the preparation for the rebuilding of the third temple is progressing. Israel established the Temple Research Institute in 1987 to rebuild the third temple and prepare in detail what is needed. Over the past 3 decades, the temple blueprints have been prepared, except for the Ark, with all sorts of equipment, such as temples, musical instruments, and menorah, necessary for worship and ceremony. Let's take a look at the video and see how each one is preparing. As you can see in the video, preparations for the rebuilding of the third temple are going well as planned. Now, let's look at some of the typical preparations. First of all, it's bread of the presence. It is a bread that the priest can eat in the temple for a week. Eating for a week should not to decay, not to cool, and not to gather flies and mosquitoes. By the way, this bread of the presence was developed by Garumo. Secondly, it is a musical instrument. It's an instrument like a harp and lyre for 4,000 musicians to perform at a worship service. At the time of 2011, they have already produced 2,500 pieces, and I think it's done now. Next is the red heifer. According to the Numbers chapter 19 verse 2-9, a lot of ashes are produced when a female calf is burned, and the ashes are collected and kept. When the priest was purifying the priest, he sprinkled the ashes on the head of water to purify the priest's hands. In the days of Aaron's son, 9 red heifer were prepared for the purification ceremony, but after the temple was destroyed, it's been cut off for 2,000 years. The heifer should be intact and flawless, even if examined, and only 3 black hairs are said to fail. In the last 30 years, the Temple Institute has been working on the red heifer, but after failing repeatedly, the red heifer was born on August 28, 2018, was accepted. The photo on the right is a capture of a newspaper reporting that a calf was born. Next is the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant was a symbol of God's presence and was kept in the most holy of the temple. Inside it was a stone tablet of Moses' 10 Commandments, Aaron's sprouted staff, and jars of manna were housed. Therefore, this cannot be made by man, and God will keep it for the last time. There are many theories about the Ark of the Covenant, but what the Temple Institute has published on its website is that King Solomon has made many rooms and mazes in the basement in preparation for the destruction of the temple, which is kept in one of them. According to some data, the labyrinth is 50 meters long and weighs 600 tons of rock. I think God will finally release in due time. Next is menorah. The menorah in Hebrew means candlestick. In Exodus chapter 25, God gives instructions for making a menorah. A world-renowned craftsman named Opal had already completed the production in 1996 and is now on display in a glass coffin in Israel's Jewish square. Menorah is made of 24K pure gold 42 kilograms and costs $3 million. Last is a priest. A priest is a person who performs sacrifices in the temple and cannot be anyone. The first high priest was Aaron, and Aaron's descendants served as priests in the temple. In order to rebuild the third temple, a DNA genetic test was conducted to select a priest again and found the Cohen family, the direct descendants of Aaron, and they have established a research center for priests, Nezer HaKadosh Institute for Quranic Studies, to train them intensively. Here's a video of training priests at the Nezer HaKadosh Institute.
אנה ממכון המקדש, אני כהן לא בגלל שבחר המקדש. והנה יש לנו את עבודת התמיד, ניסוך המים, קורבן פסח, שבועות, שתי הלחם, ביקורים. כל אלה תרגילים שנעשו ונעשים במהלך השנה. הרב אריאל, ראש מכון המקדש, הרב עזריה אריאל, ראש כולל מכון המקדש, הרב הקטן הזה, ולא רק בקבוצה מצומצמת, אלא שכל